says you really only ever have one idea. You know,
and you keep repeating it over and over again. And then people say, why do you keep drawing these miserable looking women to me?
Well, my paintings are all of me, Pat. Sometimes they feel battered and torn and mended and put together and just shattered sometimes, you know, so I reflect my own emotions and feelings in my paintings.
I think it was John Fowles, the writer, that said that the public are more interested to know Van Gogh by his razor than by his brush, so that they're more interested in the life and the person sometimes than the art.
And that annoys us all.
Well, yeah, and yet we're party to it right now.
I think all our work is very, very female and is conditioned by our perceptions as women, whether you like it or not, and I think that's something you can't help either.
Do you mean in terms of subject matter, or that you deal with, or the content of the work, or in what way?
Well, it's just a very sort of strong sense of a female identity, which you are. Mm-hmm. And you can't see things like a male sees them, because you are not male. You know, I don't think a man could paint the way you paint, Pat. I don't think he ever sees a female like that.
Well, I think it's very odd. When I used to get so many letters addressed to Mr. Doothwaite before people knew I was a woman.
Ah, no, that's a whole different issue.
And
if in doubt about the PAT, they will put Mr. Most
no,
definitely.
I've had
Mr. Lees Hansen on my things too, because they weren't quite sure
but
about
I just
and they wouldn't like to insult you by thinking you were a woman, if you were really a man.
The black widow is sitting in the middle of the web. It's the fly she seeks. You may be.
Before Jackie and Lise and Pat all came to lunch at my house, I went to visit each of them where they live and where they work. So I started at Lise Hansen's house, a converted old cottage under the Oakville Hills she shares with her family.
Saddle up beside her, why'd you think the widow's wearing the queen bee, baby. Pray that you may be left on your own. Help that you give you, gonna outlive you. But the queen bee's never gonna be alone.
But there's not room to work here, not at Lise's present scale, so we drove 6 or 7 miles along the valley to the big studio she rents above a clattering printing works.
When I'm actually painting, I like to work very, very, what may appear to be very sort of quickly and very direct. The actual physical involvement with the materials, the paint, the canvas is a joy to me. Really just like handling the material and being intensely involved in whatever I'm doing.
And I thought about Lisa's earlier work, the small blue nude in her sitting room wall, for instance, and how amazingly her painting had expanded and exploded, though always from this European tradition of the female nude.
Well, I'm mainly interested in the female body because I think it's at a time in the development of women I think is very poignant at the moment, very controversial. And I think she's really looking at herself, and she has to relook, rethink, reform, because women invariably have a choice of what they're going to do with their life, whether they're going to entirely fulfill their biological role and make that their main life, or else they're going to perhaps split between the domestic role and also a career. I almost wanted to actually, put my hands inside the torso and just open it up and find out what was inside there. So a number of the paintings dealt with a splitting open and also shedding of outer skin, which I considered some kind of corset, which was confining a whole lot of feelings and experience.
Life is a moment in space when the dream is gone. It's a lonelier place. I kiss the morning goodbye, but down inside, you know we never know why. The road is narrow and long when eyes meet eyes, and the feeling is strong. I turn away from the wall, I stumble and fall, but I give you it all. I am a woman in love, and I do anything to get you into my world and hold you within. It's a right I defend over and over again. What do I do?
First, after analyzing the female torso, I then started to attach the various limbs and parts. The head started to appear, and I became very interested in the mouth and the eyes, and these are all the ways in and yet out of the body. Our eyes, of course, are windows which reflect, which see, which decipher, select.
By now these paintings are no longer simply female. They're either coming together or splitting apart, I'm not sure which. Sometimes two-headed, often double-sexed, androgynous, very ambiguous.
Well, I know whether they are men or women, that's for sure, but the ambiguity that's stated in the canvas is actually questioning the division of the genders, and also there's
in real life? Or
both, because all of us have within us elements of what we recognize as the masculine principle and the female principle. And I think it's important that women find their more masculine, strong elements in order to achieve things in the world. The idea is to present the viewer with a choice so that you can actually read the paintings in a number of ways depending on your capacity or your viewpoint, so that a figure might merge, female figure might possibly merge with the male figure. Ted Hughes's poem, Wake Up in the Morning with Each Other's Faces, which is a lot to do about living with our mates, whether they're male or female.
Yeah, lots of feminist critics these days criticise just the physicalness of your kind of painting as if that's somehow a male form in its own right. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't. As I said earlier, I think women have to look at themselves, very much so. Therefore, I don't think it's just for men to paint the female and the other way around. Well, I can only really paint what I feel passionate about, and I feel passionate about people and their interchange and their relationship.
Do you think there is any conflict between being a woman and an artist? Pat, what do you think?
None whatsoever.
No?
No. I think possibly I feel this because of my own background has been always, from being a very small child, living and working among artists. And having married an artist, I've never known anybody who went out to work who would criticize me for just, what have you been doing all day, painting?
What do you think, Liz?
Well, for me, there has been a strong feeling of conflict, simply because of the stereotyping that goes in with being a woman and functioning as a mother and a female in society, that you are required to fulfill certain roles. And I think the struggle is within oneself as to what exactly you want to do. If you don't have it, that's fine, but I have had it, and I don't blame anyone else really other than myself. So it's been my own struggle to get through to my paint, and primarily to myself.
When I first started working, I went to art school, and then I became a teacher very shortly afterwards. So I saw myself as an art student going to be a teacher, and then I was an art teacher, and then eventually I suppose I'm an artist. I don't know, I just never really think about it.
What makes you do your own work? You know, I mean, why is that? Why does it emerge like that or take that form?
It's something that I feel a need to do, and I don't feel whole not doing it. And it's something that I like doing.
It's been quite interesting to find out how different your attitude to your drawings is to most painters.
Yeah, that's true. That's where I do my thinking work. So while the drawings are very important, they're not important to me as an end product.
If Jackie can draw at the kitchen table, to make prints, she needs the acids, etching baths and presses of the Glasgow print studio.
In order to make an etching, you normally have a metal plate, either of copper, steel or zinc, and you put on some kind of film, some kind of ground, which is going to be impervious to acid. And then you have to break through the ground or remove some of it before you put it in the acid, and the bits that you remove, the acid is going to eat away at. And that's what the ink gets then rubbed into, and it's held in there, it's sunk into those layers. The ink is eventually taken from below the surface of the plate onto the paper that it's printed on. It's actually squeezed out under pressure, and that's what forms the print. And it can be bitten, of course, to many different layers, while you've only got a very thin sheet of metal. There are hundreds of layers within that. So that means that there are endless possibilities for making textures and tones.
Colours! I mean, can you do coloured etchings? I've never thought of that so much.
Sure, you can. I don't use colour very often. Mainly I've used black and white, but in fact this series started off as a black and white one, and with one print that was like this, only a black and white version of it, and I thought it might be interesting to treat it as a seasonal idea. So it's really just about a little story about a burn in different seasons.
A summertime burn, that one, yeah, it's lovely. Autumn burn, oh, with gold.
And this is the winter one, where it's frozen.
Iced up.
Frozen up.
Oh, this is the other way around. This is spring in burn time.
Yeah,
Oh,
it upends itself. You know how things tend to do in springtime.
thought Imogen made their own paper.
Well, I've been making paper for quite a long time now, and I wanted to go to Barcelona because I'd just been learning myself, mainly, and Lawrence Barker is an old hand at it, and he set up this Barcelona paper workshop. So I went to him and had 3 weeks hanging about after the master. And it was there that I started to make these frills, because I had to make something, and it was great being in Barcelona, and it was sunny and warm and lively, and I just had been making black and white and grey etchings before I went there, and it had been raining in Scotland, and I decided I would have to make something as frivolous as possible, so I picked out magenta rag and rendered it down, and that's what happened at the end, just without really thinking about it, quite spontaneously, right off the top of my head. It might be too wet, I might have to cut it off. I'll know when I do this one, and to be able to keep it in one piece.
Was there still an old-fashioned feeling that works in paper and cloth and thread and needle were somehow inferior to canvas and oil, chisel and marble, less capable of making real art?
I think there is in this country, and maybe even in Europe. In America, there's not so much resistance to other things that have formerly been called the craft. There doesn't seem to be the same division there. The same as what are suitable themes for art, isn't it? You know, there always has to be suitable grand themes and grand materials that are used. I remember at the Women's Conference there was the other attitude coming back, that some people were saying that art should go back to being just oil painting. Do you remember that? Have you known any of that?
Yes,
discussion?
of course. So that it would be grand. You know, we would have to do grand things
Yes, well,
and not be cast in these roles of
but that's
sewing.
only because oil painting has been seen
Yeah.
as being grand.
Yeah.
Really, it's no different to anything else. It's just a way of making mark.
Pat Doothwaite's paintings, one scene never to be forgotten, like Sylvia Plath's or Anne Sexton's poems, like songs sung by Judy Garland or Janis Joplin. They are part of the art of the extreme. Queens or crones or screen goddesses. You don't know whether they're messages from the nightmare world or offerings to it, courting it and coaxing it nearer.
I think Baudelaire was correct when he said within every artist there is the man and the woman.
Yes.
And I feel asexual when I'm working. I do not think the slightest bit about being a woman or being a man or being anything. It transcends everything. I'm away in a completely different world.
Well,
I don't
I
think
agree
you can
with
classify these works as being feminine works, a work by a woman.
From the 369 Gallery in Edinburgh, I went to York, to the tiny studio near the Minster, where Pat is living and working with this year's canvases.
Amy, wonderful Amy, how can you blame me for loving you? Since you've won the praise of every nation, you have filled my heart with admiration. Amy, wonderful Amy, I'm proud of the way you flew. Believe me, Amy, you You cannot blame me, Amy, for falling in love with you.
That I'm almost like a method actress. I get hold of somebody such as Amy Johnson, and I'm living through the same emotions, only I'm doing it on canvas, so it's like a giant diary of all my feelings in each, coming at each picture. And now, to me, it's very good, because all this absolute stillness, which is in all these big human images, has gone by incorporating the animal, which has got all this power and movement, the big snow leopard, which I'm very pleased with, because it's gentle and kind, and yet you think you touch that and look at the haunches on it, it really could kill you. And I think what is happening with the one woman possessed by the cheetah, it's a gradual thing which is happening, and it's weird to me how it even did come about as a picture, because I wasn't even thinking about cheetahs. But the eyes, I think, are quite extraordinary, similar to a cheetah's eyes, and there is something very odd happening. The idea of going to India has always been sort of something rather sacred to me, and it seemed that I could manage to go and live there for 3 months, so I thought I'd just had enough of everything here, and cut myself off completely by going to somewhere where there were no other white people. And it was just the most marvelous experience ever. I mean, opening up the mind and expanding in every way.
What a fantastic place, Pat. It's enormous.
It's like a sort of temple for pictures, isn't
Absolutely. Incredible.
it? I think I found out I've got well over 1,000 pictures, kind of the drawings and the paintings.
How many years?
Oh, quite a number of years, practically all my working life.
Marvellous. And this is one of your heroines, Gwen John?
Yes, she was the sister of Augustus John, very fine painter she was, Gwen. And I lived in France last year for about 3 months doing the research on her. Very lonely, solitary sort of woman. The mistress of Rodin. And at the same time I sort of was identifying with her sadness and loneliness.
Right.
And then
Wonderful.
such wonderful sort of clothes she wore, and this great hat. I think it's almost like a sort of...
You love hats, don't you, Pat?
Yes, I do. I'm mad about hats.
And who's this?
And this one here, this homage to Janis Joplin, the American singer. And I did it one day when my son was playing "Oh Lord, Won't You Buy Me a Mercedes Car?" And I think really this tremendous character on stage, so powerful, wonderful voice, but fell to pieces.
Another tragic figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think my characters are all major adventuresses, but they're all on the wrong side of the track and end up in a rather sad way.
And how about this?
This one here, this is Jason the Gypsy Moth, which Amy Johnson
So it's
flew
part
in.
of your Amy Johnson
Yes,
series?
and it's housed at the Science Museum in London. I got the number plate there, and of course it's really, when you see the thing, it's just strings and bits and pieces. God knows how she had the courage to fly it, but she had really...
So that's the plane almost disintegrating?
Yes, it is, and I wanted this hovering moth-like feeling about
Wonderful.
it, so fragile. And this is Belle
She's
Starr.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Belle Starr, a bandit.
Yeah, a bandit. I was reading about male bandits, and I became interested to see what on earth lady bandits were like. And I found her, and she was, of course, Belle Starr, and nicknamed Petticoat of the Plains. She was, in fact, very ugly with pock marks on her face, but she wore a veil and was always dressed up to the nines. And I think she was hanged in the end. So I really...
Sticky ends.
Oh, they all have to have absolutely wonderful lives. In fact, I think I'm living my life through them.
Would you like to be a bandit?
I think I am an adventuress through the pictures.
So it doesn't really matter whether the intent is there or not to make works that are female.
Oh, I never think about it.
No, but some people do.
And
You know, when you get people that are working in a feminist political context where the intent is quite specifically to be about femininity and to be about female art and to make an art that is going to work for the betterment of women in a very political way, you know. But so that exists too.
yes.
And then it becomes a political and a very self-conscious
Yes, but
statement.
that's
Not
your opinion.
art.
That's
not
your
producing
opinion. That
images.
means that you have to say that that what Hogarth produced, William Hogarth, was not art, because his were satirical, political revelations. And there are some women who, while they're not working in the same context, they are working in a political context, which I think is very relevant.
But in America, when I saw this kind of feminist art, it was so lousy, it was so contrived. They had to put their little message across that I'm a woman and here I am doing my pictures and this is all a political thing and I want equal rights and equal freedom and equal everything else. And it just fell short of the whole meaning of the word art. It became something which was verbal rather than a visual statement.
I think that the work of Judy Chicago, saying a major piece, and I would regard it as a major piece of work, like The Dinner Party, cannot be ignored, not just for the art content that it had, but also for the way in which it was conceived as a process where women outworkers were actually brought in to do parts, to make parts of what she, as the artist stroke designer, had made as the grand conception. And that is just sort of one area. Then there's the whole other area of other female body art and more overt feminist political art, say like the work that Alexis Hunter does, Mary Kelly, the work that they do in London.
What do you feel about the status of artists in our society generally, whether they're men or women?
Well, I don't know if they have any status at all, really. I think they try to function as best they can in society and do their job. You know? I mean, as a teacher, if I can make people just more aware of their environment, their surroundings, and perhaps their self-responses to see life in a more perceptive way, then you can just enrich them generally. Whether they go on to make that a life's work is entirely up to them. As Pat said earlier, you can't make anyone an artist.
I think the old story that in Paris, if you say you're an artist, they roll out the red carpet, but in England, they hide the silver, is very true, because we're almost treated like gypsies, or even worse.
Art has come to be linked with the religious experience and with philosophy. And at one time those things were very separate, so the artist is looked on to be the one to make the major statements along frequently with the intellectuals.
But I love that one of Tom Stoppard's where he says something or other, but how did somebody get to be an artist? He thought of people that got to do art at school were the people that didn't play games and got off gym and they got to go to the art room. And he said, you know, what is it about an artist that has got them off gym for life?